This is the Blaise and Access podcast, amplifying disability perspective, one story at a time. I'm Blaise Bryant. It is really good to be back, as I'm going to explain a couple of quick things here before we get into why we're doing this here. This was supposed to be a 4-part blind parenting series. I got sick. My wife Erin and Colin, they both got sick after I did. That really just threw everything off. And of course, both Erin and I, we started back to work. So that played a part in things too. So what I'm going to do is 2-part blind parenting series, and Erin and I will catch up and talk about this when we can. So I'm going to combine parts 2 and 3. And part 2 being showing off some of the gadgets that I use for being a blind parent, which I'll do in a little bit. And part 3 I'm actually going to do first. And that is talk about some of the things like diaper changes and bathing and those sort of things. Before I do, in the last episode that I put together about 3.5 weeks or so ago, I forgot to mention one very important person, and that is my counselor with the Commission for the Blind, April, here in New York. April really made things happen, whatever I needed. She has been tremendously supportive. Actually, April runs the Albany office and typically isn't in the role of being a counselor, but she wanted to be because of the circumstances here. And I am just incredibly grateful. I had the pleasure of meeting April a couple of years ago at an event for the blind that the Commission for the Blind and other agencies were putting on. I worked the event for my job at the New York Association on Independent Living. So that was really cool. And we had a really good conversation about guide dog stuff. And we just got along really well. And I'm very grateful for everything that she did. I also needed to upgrade my Braille display. And I did some research, and thankfully, there was no question, no resistance there. I had what's called the Q Braille XL for a few years. It was starting to show its age. I have what is now the Braille eMotion. It's made by a company called Selvas, S-E-L-V-A-S. What I love about it, among other things, is I can download books onto it. So when the time comes, I can do more reading to Colin from the Braille display and not so much on my phone, because it's really important to, at least in my opinion, limit that screen time as much as you can. So really grateful to have this technology. I can also record podcast stuff. There's a microphone port on it, and it connects to my phone, computer. It's a really cool gadget. I'm still learning it. I've had it for a few months, but very grateful for everything that April did. Okay, now to get into diaper changes, bathing, those sort of things. I will admit, I didn't change a diaper for the first 2 weeks when Colin was born, because we made the decision to have him circumcised. And frankly, I was very nervous and freaked out about, oh my goodness, how am I going to change his diaper without complicating things? This is a very awkward thing to talk about, and I just don't know any other way to put that. So forgive me for sounding a little awkward about that. Now, thankfully, Erin was able to do all of the diaper changes, and once everything healed, I was really looking forward to changing the diapers. And I actually do this quite a bit. And it's very interesting now to see how things have changed because he's now eating some purees, loves apples, bananas, pears, carrots, everything except pureed green beans, which I really don't know who in the heck would love pureed green beans, but that's just me. But it's interesting having to figure out how to deal with the different textures, and of course there's more that you're dealing with. Now I've decided it's a good idea to put some paper towel down on the changing pad to help minimize the mess. And I have to say it's been pretty beneficial doing this because it has worked. What I do is I take a big sheet, put the diaper on it, put Colin on it, so clearly big enough to fit both of those things, or both Colin and the diaper, and you just clean it up. Now, if you're going to ask, well, how have you dealt with blowouts? Because I have. That one is a bit more complicated, and the best answer I give you is I just do the best I can. Get them cleaned up, get the bath started, and there we go. Which I guess leads me perfectly into the bathing. The way I do it, with a washcloth, a little bit of soap, wash the hair, and just work down the body. It's surprisingly easy giving a baby a bath. At least it is for now. Yes, he's doing more kicking and putting his hands in his mouth, and that makes it slightly more complicated, but hey, that's just part of the development. As he's almost 6 months old, where did the time go? It is just absolutely incredible. So that's how I handle diaper changes and bathing, and really what has been so helpful throughout all of this is what my friend Micah, who's a great friend of the show, has been on many times, told me months ago, and that was just follow your instinct. Such a simplistic thing to say, but yet it was so helpful, and it continues to be so helpful. I'm just so grateful that I was able to talk with a lot of blind parents before Colin was born, and to talk with a friend and her mom. The mom is blind, and my friend Kat is sighted. So to have that perspective, I learned just a lot of really cool, interesting things that, because those were one-on-one conversations, I'm just going to keep it that way. And I'm just so thankful to have had all these people to talk to, because they gave me a lot of hope and a lot of things to think about and prepare for. So that's where we are with diaper changes and bathing. If you have any other questions for me that pop up as you're listening to this, let me know. I will definitely do my best to work in some of your questions and answer them as best I can. Let me know on Facebook at facebook.com/blaisin shows. That's BLAISIN shows. It's the only social media I'm using for now. I hope to have LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, maybe Blue Sky, get that stuff set up, do a little bit more with that. And this way I can be a bit more accessible. But that's what I'm doing for now. That's just what I'm able to do So looking forward to expanding my social media reach as the show grows here. So what we're going to do right now is take a break, and I'm going to use my other fully accessible recorder, my H6 Essential that's made by Zoom, to show you some of the gadgets that I use coming up in a matter of seconds here on the Blaise and Access podcast. Hi, it is gadget time here on the Blaise and Access podcast as I am downstairs in my kitchen. I've got many of the gadgets here that I use a lot for my blind parenting all set up here. I'm using the microphone that came with my Zoom H6 Essential, which is a pretty decent mic, so that's what we're working with here. Now, I'm going to show you... Let's see, the first one I want to show you is my talking scale. And I'm going to have product links in the show notes for all of this stuff. I'm just grabbing a bottle out of our little drawer here that has spurt cloths. And I'm taking the cap off of the bottle along with the anti-colic insert and the vacuum. So now everything is off the bottle here. And now I'm going to turn on the scale, and you will understand right away why I call this scale King Charles.
0.
0. Yes, indeed. So I'm going to, just for demo purposes here, pop a empty bottle into the food scale here. There's a bowl on top of the scale.
0.
No, all right. Here we go.
1.5 ounces.
So you hear...
0.
Thank you, King. Now I'm going to turn you off so you do not interrupt my recording, and I'm going to put the bottle back together. So I know the bottle weighs 1.5 ounces. That is my guide for making formula bottles, because we use both breast milk and formula. So if I am putting water into the bottle for the formula because we use the powder, or even when we were using the liquid, I would then hear the scale say something like 5.5 ounces, or King Charles, 7 ounces. And then it's just sort of a guess and check, which truthfully is what I find the most difficult about all of this, but I make it work, and eventually you get really good with time and practice at figuring all of this out. So now I'm going to put the bottle back into the drawer here, which you are hearing, just so it's out of my hands. Otherwise, I'll be sitting there using it like a fidget spinner as I'm doing the rest of this recording here. But anyhow, the next thing that I use is, now this is not necessarily a piece of assistive tech, but I've got a bottle warmer with buttons, and it's made by a company called Baby Brezza. Like I said, I'm going to have product links to all of this in the show notes for you. And the way it works, it's a bottle warmer. You put the water in, the formula, whatever, and then you warm up the bottle. Well, how do you do it with the Baby Brezza? So in left to right order, there's the power button, warm, cold, quick warm, steady warm. I almost always use the quick warm. The only time I'll use the steady warm is if I just need a little bit more time to get other stuff done. And of course, when Colin isn't crying. So that works out really well because it's just 5 buttons. It's a pretty easy pattern to memorize. And with the with the cold, which is what I use almost 100% of the time, if I'm heating up a 4-ounce bottle, I'll just do 2 ounces just so it doesn't get too warm. I'll just hit the power button, the cold button twice, and then the quick warm button, and voila, it starts to heat up. And how do I know if it's empty? Well, you start to hear this sound that tells me, okay, we are quite literally out of steam here. So that's how I use it. And yes, the baby Bretza also can connect to an app, which I have the app. I really don't use the app all that much because, frankly, I find the actual buttons more accessible than the app. So it's just one of those cases where just because something connects to an app doesn't necessarily mean the app makes it more accessible. The only advantage I find for the app is if I need to see how long the bottle is going to take to heat up. So those are the two things with respect to feeding. Now, I also have a gadget here that I'm about to turn on. It's called a pen friend, and it really does look kind of like a pen. So it starts out wide where there's a speaker, and then it has 3 buttons, power button, volume buttons, and you use the volume buttons in sync to record labels. This is essentially a label recorder. Now, the pen friend, it does come with these little round stickers that you can put on whatever it is that you want to record. So I've got here, turn this on.
Power on.
Excellent. So the way this works, if I need to know what it is that I have in front of me, that I've got a label, I hold it so the part that almost looks like you're writing with a pen hovers over the sticker. I don't know how well this is going to come across the recording. Let's see.
Pacifier.
There we go. And in case you didn't hear it, it said pacifiers. So that's cool. I've got labels for pacifiers, labels for first aid. I have Colin's clothes bins labeled and some other stuff. And yes, that was me who recorded the label. It also has a USB port for transferring files onto the computer, that sort of thing. I'm going to shut this off now.
Power off.
Excellent. And set that on top of the pacifier box. Then the other one that has come in handy sometimes is a talking thermometer, which weirdly looks and feels like a toy gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it just a couple inches from my forehead, and I'm going to hit the trigger.
Your body temperature is 97.2 Fahrenheit degrees.
Excellent. I am not running a fever, 97.2. And it's a forehead thermometer. That's how you get the body temperature. And it has just 3 buttons on it, or actually 4 buttons that I believe adjust the volume, and you can switch from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and a reset button. And the way you take the temperature is by quite literally pulling the trigger. I really don't use a lot of assistive tech beyond this stuff. It's more adapting certain things. For example, medicines, liquid medicines. The way you do this is with the syringe, you take a knife and you score. So you make a little mark on the syringe with your half milliliter or 1 milliliter or teaspoon, tablespoon, or teaspoons, I really should say, because that's how they're marked, based on teaspoons, and milliliters and liters for the metric folks, which us silly Americans are not. So that's really how that works. I admittedly, because you have to be so exact with the medicines, it is easier for Erin because she has sight to do the medicines. I just really want to make sure that Colin is getting what he needs. And if that means, okay, I have to step back and just let her do this, that's okay. Parenthood really is a team. And I could not possibly emphasize that enough. So before I wrap up the podcast here, I will tell you how being a blind dad has, in a way, allowed me to find myself again, because I am now doing more cooking here in the kitchen. So I have markings on my stove for the burners. We have one of those flat top stoves, so you have to have it marked. Otherwise, you really don't know what you're working with. Our oven has markings on it for bake and broil and the off button and adjusting the temperature. I'm pretty damn good with the air fryer. Our air fryer has buttons. I believe it's a Ninja air fryer, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And that's because I work from home much of the time. A lot of this was falling to Erin, and quite frankly, allows me to eat a little healthier too, because it's given me confidence. I've realized that I've had some confidence issues that started during the pandemic and really was just having a hard time figuring out how to get over those. And, well, having a kid makes you look at yourself and say, okay, how can you be better? At least that's what it does for me. So I just wanted to point that out. So that wraps up our really abbreviated blind parenting series here on the Blaise and Axis podcast. Later this week, you're going to hear a conversation with Anita Cameron, who is an awesome disability rights advocate, to lead off our Black History Month series. I'm really looking forward to catching up with Anita. She has some really awesome perspectives to share. She's someone I consider a dear friend. So I couldn't think of a better person to lead off our Black History Month series, which is going to drop on Thursday, part 1 at least. So I'd love to know what you think. Any questions you have for me on blind parenting? Like I said, I'm about 6 months into this. So if I don't know the answer, I will ask my resources and get you the best answer that I can. Let me know on Facebook at Blaise and Shows. That's BLAISIN Shows. Make sure you subscribe to the Blaise and Axis podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you can, support the show at blaiseandshows.com. That's BLAISIN shows.com. The Blaise and Axis podcast is a Blaise and Shows production. It is hosted and produced by me, Blaise Bryant, and is not affiliated with any disability rights organizations. The views expressed here on the show are solely those of the views of the host and any guests. So I look forward to sharing my conversation with you with Anita Cameron and learning more about the perspective of Black people in a very white disability rights movement here on the Blaise and Axis podcast, amplifying disability perspective one story at a time. Have a great day.